This is the Tom Anderson Show, broadcasting live from the KVNT studios, 7 to 9 a.m., Monday through Friday.
Longtime entrepreneur and businessman who then, appointed by President Bush, served as the ambassador to the Holy See, to the Vatican for the United States, 2005 to 8, and then served as a congressman in Florida's 19th district. Think of like Naples, Florida, 2017 to 21, 2 terms there. Francis Rooney joins us. He has been on the program in the past, and if ever there was a time to get his sage advice and perspective, it's now. He published a very thoughtful and thought-provoking article in The Hill, and we'll post that on Facebook. We'll make a YouTube video of this as well. Ambassador Rooney, Francis, good afternoon. How are you?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me back on.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, you really nailed it with your opinion editorial, and you delineated some of the weird mindsets coming out of Russia. You said the delusional justifications about protecting Russian borders and guarding against having a NATO member as a neighbor. That's really the foundation, but Putin's actions have been awful. And today, for folks listening, obviously after the show, April 19, 2022, headline news, New York Times, Washington Post, CNN, Fox, you name it, they're covering that now there's another march into central and eastern Ukraine and a larger force coming in for kind of their second volley. So what's your take, first of all, on that breaking news today?
Yeah, I think we're entering a very dangerous phase of this thing, even more dangerous than it's been, because I think Putin has had limited success, so he's kind of cornered, and I think he's doubled down on the violence, and I don't think you're going to dislodge him from the eastern part of the country.
You wrote in your opinion editorial, 1947 to 89, Truman Doctrine contained the Soviet Union, and now we're not seeing that, certainly, in the Berlin Wall, disintegration of USSR, and those, 16 countries breaking apart USSR. I know that Vladimir Putin reminisces fondly of those years, while the rest of us kind of shudder in horror at them. I had relatives in East Germany, so believe me, we were affected. Half my mom's family was stuck there until the wall came down. And so now you see, and you've written that containment may not be the option. I love your points about Nord Stream 2, the pipeline, and even Aeroflot you mentioned, the airlines. And you say, hey, you know, with ticketing and reservation systems, we could cut them off. Why do you think you're not seeing solidarity in this in European nations? Is it because they're so dependent on natural resources from Russia?
I think it's two things. I think it's natural resources because of the ridiculous position that Germany's taken about being reliant on Russian, and Italy too, on Russian energy. But also, you know, the German companies are huge in Russia. And so there's a economic self-interest by the car companies and the big industrial companies in Germany, particularly, and what they will lose. You know, a lot of companies have been willing to write off major assets to do the right thing and put pressure on Russia, but these Germans don't seem to be thinking that way so much.
Well, and you touch on internet-based ticketing and reservation systems, the Sabre system. I remember when I was younger, that was the big one for travel agencies. You also reference, though, presently, Aeroflot, their fleet, the Russian airlines, the big one, is comprised, folks, what do you think it's comprised of? Airbuses made in Europe and Boeings made in Seattle and a couple places in the nation. And so we could literally cut off Russia's access to parts and maintenance. I mean, that's a huge one. And so I think you're on to something without question. And the biggies are like blocking Russians, and you talk about this, from SWIFT banking system, and then the fact that we could seize Putin. I mean, how Vladimir Putin has, 80 billion, they say? I mean, this is a bureaucrat who probably makes, 100,000 a year, 200,000?
Yeah.
He's obviously stealing and pilfering money across the board and strong-arming like a mafia or cartel head on the SWIFT banking system. And you're a prominent businessman, certainly in Florida and nationally. You would say what? That just hobbles them completely because that's the infrastructure for them to do any commerce?
Well, it would certainly hurt them. I mean, they'd have to work through China probably if they can't go through the Western Hemisphere. But I think that we can do more and should do more. I think we should not sell parts. Airbus and Boeing shouldn't sell parts to Aeroflot, and we should cut them off. I think the United States has cut them off of the SWIFT banking system. And we need to hopefully we'll be able to get more out of the Germans and the rest of the Europeans as well.
Banning Russia from all sporting competitions, I agree with you on that for multiple reasons. One is because Russia attacked Ukraine. Second, it's because Russia is terrorizing the world and threatening nuclear proliferation. But a bigger reason, or certainly in conjunction, I won't give them percentages on importance, but it's the fact that they're cheating constantly. We just saw that in China. They're constantly cheating. We saw that with the gymnast, with the skater, where they pull her off and they're like, "Wait, you're full of drugs." And then they I don't know what if they took her gold or what they took away, but I mean, I would think the public would get behind that. No more Russian competition. All these things added up. Do you think that puts strain on Putin, who has narcissistic tendencies and is unapologetic and really wants the adoration? Reminds me of a serial killer. Wants the admiration and the adoration from the public. Would that change his mind if all these things were stopped, or do you think he's so maniacal he would continue?
Well, he's an autocrat, so he doesn't have to worry about what other people think. He only has to worry about power for him. So I don't know that anything would change him from his desire to accomplish the goal that he laid out 15 years ago of getting the border properties back. Now, he's going to have a real problem going beyond Moldova and Ukraine because the rest of them are in NATO.
What do you think about Finland and Sweden joining NATO? Now they're talking of that.
Yeah, that would be an interesting development. It certainly raises the heat for Russia. Finland was owned by Russia for 100 years after World War I.
When we look at China and Iran and India, beyond them, and you talk about this in your article in The Hill, your op-ed, the international community largely united in this application of sanctions on Russia and going after the oligarchs' assets, which is music to my ears. And you mentioned FOPs, the Friends of Putin, are under the microscope. All good stuff, freezing bank accounts and seizing everything from yachts to jets. China, Iran, India, I get China. I get Iran. But India, why do you think they, and I know you can't read the mind of the leadership, but why would they do that? Why wouldn't they be more neutral or supportive like Turkey?
They've always had this real socialist bent. They have been close to Russia for a long time, and they have a lot of a philosophical alignment with them in some ways. I mean, India's more free enterprise maybe in recent years than it's ever been, but you go back to Gandhi, they were just as socialist as any communist country back then.
Now, Ambassador Rooney, folks, this is a former congressman in Florida, but we're also talking to a former ambassador under Bush, Holy See, the Vatican. Do you think that their response is appropriate? I mean, the Pope and team, the cardinals and the archbishops and bishops, and we go to Catholic Church here in Alaska. My wife's Filipina, and we're Catholic all the way. So, do you think their response has been thoughtful, or could it be more fierce against Russia? There's not much.
Well, I think they've done what they can. They've spoken up aggressively against the war and the suffering. The Pope talked about maybe going over there, but I don't think he's actually actualized on that, and I'm not so sure that he should. He's pretty old and feeble, and it's a pretty rough area over there right now. I just was watching where the president of Spain's going to go over there next week.
Wow. And then the last question, talking about Taiwan and China, do you think that's next, or do you think they wouldn't push it? Do you think that China's just monitoring?
I think that this has shown China some things that might make them think twice about the attacking Taiwan. Certainly the reaction of the world has probably been stronger than most people would have thought when Putin made his moves. But I think that China could probably get Taiwan if they wanted it. It would be very difficult, but I don't know that we could stop them.
Yeah, no, I agree.
Yeah.
Folks, Ambassador Francis Rooney, we'll get him back hopefully in the summer and talk more about this. The Global Vatican, by the way, is his best-selling book, 2013. I read it right after we interviewed, and I purchased about 5 copies. He talks about the process of becoming an ambassador and gave an inside look at the Catholic Church, world politics, all sorts of elements there in the United States' relationship with the Vatican and the Holy See. So I encourage you, we'll put the link in the YouTube video to purchase that as well. Ambassador Rooney, Francis, happy belated Easter. God bless you. Thank you for all you do.
Thank you for having me on.
Absolutely, my friend. Congressman, Ambassador, businessman extraordinaire, Francis Rooney, right here on The Tom Anderson Show.